Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Experian Marketing Services webinar. My name is James Murray. I'm the Digital Insight Manager here at Experian Marketing Services, and today we're going to be talking about understanding seasonality in travel. For those of you who are sort of new to this system, or some of you will be clients of Experian, some of you will be prospects, and we know we have a number of people joining us from various parts of the business. It's always worth starting, I think, by outlining, why you should be listening to us. Why, what's the point of you coming along and listening to what we have to say today? And I think the main reason why you should is because we are a huge data provider, and we've got a lot of very interesting data to share with you today. And so the first thing that we always say when we're starting these webinars is that we know 500 things about 49 million people across the UK in 24 million households. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, that's an extraordinary depth and volume of data around looking at 98% of the adult population. This is pretty sort of unprecedented in the market. No one else really has anything to touch this level and depth of data that we have. And so for those of you who are sort of new to Experian, I'm hoping that there will be some interesting insights. For those of you who are familiar with some of our products, perhaps you're already a customer of Hitwise or Cheatmail, or some of the other Experian products, I'm hoping that we'll be able to show you a different side, or one of the other advantages of bringing different data sets together. And that's ultimately what we're going to be talking about today, specifically looking at how we can bring data together from our various sources to understand customers in the travel arena. So, one of our things and our sort of mantra really as a marketing services provider is to bring brands and their customers closer together. And we do that through our sort of three key pillars, which we outline as know, get, keep. We want to be able to help our customers know who their best customers are and be able to profile those through the data assets that we hold. We then enable our clients to be able to go and find more of their best customers, be that online or offline. Most of the things that we're touching on today is sort of how you can get hold of more customers in the online world and using sort of digital channels, but you'll see later how that ties into the offline world as well. And finally, once you spend a lot of money and a lot of time in your marketing, making sure that you go and acquire new customers. But once you've got those customers, how do you go about keeping them and holding on to them? And the way that we see that is through making sure that you engage with them in the right channel, giving them the right message at the right time. And so we're going to be talking about how we can sort of do that throughout this sort of presentation. So one of the things that I think that has changed and is sort of worth just touching on is how customer expectations have changed. And in particular, I think customers have leapt forward much at a greater rate of change than the brands are currently able to sort of keep up with. Your customers expect everything to be seamless. So it doesn't matter what channel they touch your brand with, be that online, through email, through direct mail, whether they sign up to receive text messages from you, if they're engaged on social media, or if they're coming into your physical stores. They expect you to have a seamless and integrated approach, and they expect you to know who they are, so that they want everything to be joined up. And if it's not joined up, they get thoroughly irritated. Now, there are very few brands currently which are actually able to answer and deliver on the current customer expectation. So I think the crucial thing increasingly is using data in a smart way to be able to start to bridge the gap between what brands are currently able to deliver versus what your customers expect. One of the major barriers in particular that we are going to focus on is the silos that are currently in place across many sort of marketing teams. So one of the things that we know is that across our client base, a lot of marketing teams are having to change, and people are not able to just work in isolated niches anymore. And the search guys just do their bit, the email guys send out their email campaigns, and the direct advertising people have their own agenda. people are having to collaborate more closely, firstly to make things more efficient and to make things cheaper and more cost effective, but actually also because they know that they're talking to the same people. It's the same bunch of people that you're trying to attract to actually buy your products. How can you touch them at the right time, in the right way, which is going to be able to make sure that they're going to come through and they buy your products? And so today, really what we're going to be doing is looking to two broad themes. The first one is quite a tactical theme about how you can look at some different ways of using data quite tactically to understand when to grab your customers. And in particular, we're looking again at sort of the seasonality of data to show you when are good times to execute certain campaigns. And then the second half is much more strategic. So how can you be clever about understanding exactly who your customers are and what is it that is driving them when they're perhaps not interested in travel? What are the other things that they're interested in? And how can you tap into that to again sort of start to be a bit more strategic about approaching getting customers to come to your website? So let's kick off with some of the tactical stuff. And I think the first thing to point out, this is using some of our Experian Hitwise data. So we're looking here at, in the context of entire internet usage across the UK, when are people most likely to visit travel sites? I think one of the nice things about travel is that it is very seasonal and it's also very consistent. And with consistency, what you're able to do is to be able to forecast much clearer and be able to predict exactly what's going to happen in the future. For example, we know that the key travel periods across the industry for most times when people are booking and going online are in January and July. And so you can see in this trend here, there's a consistent sort of theme where that's continually happening. And therefore, you're much more able to be able to predict when we come around in a couple of months' time to July, we know that there's going to be sustained interest and a peak in people searching and visiting websites. And therefore, we can start to be clever about when we start planning our campaigns so that they're executed at exactly the right time to make the sort of the biggest bang for your buck. Now, what you can do when you start to drill into that a little bit, again, this is using some of our search data now, is having a look at what are the particular destinations which people are searching for and when do the seasonality of those destinations change. So you can see what I've done here is have a look specifically on the graph at the searches for flights and holidays to destinations within the Eurozone, within EMEA, so the rest of Europe outside of the Eurozone, the Middle East and Africa, and then also travel in the UK. You can see that quite clearly they spike along with the rest of the industry in January and July, but there are distinct differences between certain destinations which spike at different times. So you'll see the bit which I've highlighted here on the graph. There's a big uplift in mid-July, in particular for Eurozone searches, which is also at a time when EMEA remains flat. And when we dig down into what are the destinations in particular that people are searching for at that time, you can see a lot of the Spanish destinations really emerge. So the likes of Malaga, Tenerife, Barcelona, Mallorca. And so that's what's driving that growth. Now, you can use this data in a way that you can understand on a week-by-week basis what are the most popular destinations, what are the ones which are seeing growth, where is the anticipated interest going to come, what things are flagging that are going to make people want to buy. And by understanding what these destinations are, you can be much clearer about how you're going to sort of target people, getting the right people to buy those different types of holidays and what you're going to start offering people. Search trends can be used in a slightly different way. This is a much more specific example now drilling into a particular industry. So what we're looking at here is some search data from a couple of years ago when specifically around how people were searching for the ski season, ski holidays, and various sort of things to do with the ski resorts. Now, what's particularly interesting about this is that when we started looking at the beginning of December, the snow which was available in some of the top ski resorts across Europe, and but particularly in France, was really, really ropey. And actually, you can see the picture there. That's a picture of one of the top French mountains in the middle of the Alps. there was absolutely no snow, and so that was reflected online by a significant drop year on year in the amount of searches of people going looking for ski holidays. However, these things can change very, very quickly, and one of the things that we have to understand is that the weather can have a massive impact on what people are doing. So the next week there was a huge dump of snow, and all of a sudden skiing was sort of back on the agenda, whereas before people have been very nervous about going to some of the French resorts because there was no snow. All of a sudden there was absolutely loads of snow, and they went from being a 46% deficit year on year to a 12% up year on year in terms of overall ski searches. And just in that week, when the snowfall came, the number of searches doubled. Now, clearly, it's always going to be difficult to be able to predict the weather and what's going to happen, but at least if you can anticipate when there's going to be these changes in terms of, that if the weather is bad and then it suddenly changes, that there's going to be a massive influx of people suddenly interested in going skiing. You can start to sort of anticipate when these trends are going to happen and jump on those with the very sort of fast-moving search terms. We're going to be talking a lot about channels today, and later we'll sort of cover off the fact that actually focusing on specific channels in isolation is not a particularly good way of doing things. And as we said, we're having to become more joined up in the things that we do. But just looking at the channels, and the channels in particular which are driving traffic to the travel industry, is quite interesting to start off with. And what I've done here is have a look at the differences in where traffic is coming from in order to drive visits to travel websites. And I've looked at the differences year on year. So you can see that search remains the sort of the biggest driver of traffic overall. 40% of all visits coming to the travel industry are coming from search engines, but that's actually down quite a bit year on year, and so search is becoming less prominent as a source of traffic, and that's quite unusual compared to other industries such as retail and finance. Travel is the second biggest source of visits overall, and that's something which is growing, and what we see that being is very much increased competition between different travel sites. So as people are doing more browsing, as people are doing greater amounts of research on the internet, and also going between some of the price comparison sites, the visits between different travel sites is increasing. One of the other sort of slightly worrying things for the travel industry that we're seeing is that the average time spent on site is decreasing quite significantly. So there are more visits happening, more visits going between travel websites, but the actual amount of time per visit is going down, which means people are skimming through content. And if they can't find the exact holiday or the exact deal or the exact thing which they really want to go for on your website, you can be pretty sure that they'll happily skip through and they'll go through to another website. And therefore, it's becoming more and more important to make sure that you're absolutely optimized completely for the right customers and giving them exactly what they want, and making your on-site user experience as easy and as sort of simple and as intuitive as possible. One final thing that I wanted to just highlight on this slide is that social media seems to be something which is having significantly less impact now than it was this time last year. And I think that's really due to the fact that brands are realizing that social is not always the optimum channel in order to drive visits directly to their website. We know that social is a really good channel for building some empathy with your clients, building trust, and doing some more fun things. But actually, as a pure sort of driver, is not really the channel which is best optimized for this. It's a great method of being able to talk to your clients, but it's not always the best driver. And we'll come on to how we can use social in a bit more depth a little bit later. So one of the things that this is now using some of our combined data from Hitwise and Cheetahmail, and I've said that at the beginning that we were going to show you how by combining different data sets you can get some really interesting insight. And one of the things that I've shown here is the difference between when people are most engaged online in terms of when they're making the visits to travel sites. That's the blue bar on this graph. Versus when people are most likely to transact through email rates. So when you're sending out your travel emails and when people are actually most likely to click through and buy a holiday or a flight or some other assorted product from your email. Now, you can see we've already touched on the fact that the key sort of months of the year are in January and July, but these actually don't necessarily correspond with the highest peak months when people are more likely to transact. So what you can see in the bars which I've sort of highlighted with the green lines there are that the months immediately before the peak months are the times when people are more likely to transact via email. And then also you can see the average order value of a travel purchase is higher in these months as well. So that immediately starts to show you that you're just going after clients at the peak time is not always the best strategy. And if you can get a little bit ahead of the curve and start targeting people in June and in December in particular, these are key times when people are going to more likely to respond to email, more likely to click through and transact, and also more likely to spend more money. And if we go down to a slightly more granular level now, what we're looking at is, again, sort of the days of the week. What days of the week are best suited for your email versus when people are actually coming to the website. So again, the blue bar here is looking at the total visits online going to travel sites. The red line is looking at the unique click rates for emails sent out on those days. You can see clearly the big thing here is that Mondays is the day when people are most likely to visit travel sites, but when they're also going to have their highest number of click-through rates. But what also emerges is that although generally total visits have declined during the week, so you've got a peak on Mondays when people are most interested, then during the week they get just more and more bored or not so interested in being able to purchase travel. Saturday is the weakest day of the week, and then there's a sort of a slight peak on Sunday. But with the unique click rates, actually, there's an uplift on Thursdays and also a big uplift on Sundays. So Sundays would be a really good day to target people. Perhaps they have a bit more time in their browsing habits. They're able to think a bit more about travel. They're not preoccupied with work. And this is a good time to be able to send through emails ready for that big peak on Mondays. One of the cool things that we can do with Hitwise is start to show you when your competitors are sending their email shots and when are they receiving the proportionally the most amount of their traffic from email. So what I've done here is have a look at 5 of the big sort of travel operators, online and offline. So we've got Thomson, Thomas Cook, First Choice, Coptive, and Virgin Holidays. You can see that for these guys, the sort of consistently the biggest days are Fridays when they're receiving the biggest proportion of their traffic from email. We take that in a slightly different way and we have a look at the multi-channel retailers. So those are the people who've got both an online presence and an offline presence. So someone like Thomas Cook versus the online-only retailers, so people like Expedia or Last Minute and other online retailers. You can see that there's quite a sort of distinct difference in when they're most reliant on their email channel. So for the multi-channel retailers, they generally rely on Fridays for the times when they're sending out their emails, whereas the online-only agencies seem to have their big day a couple of days earlier on Wednesdays. But from what we can see from this data is that currently no one's really exploiting the Monday and Sunday gap. And so this is a great opportunity for you to sort of go out, send your emails out on a slightly different day, try a different tactic, and get people through and see if you can start to get a greater number of clicks through to your website. And one of the other things we can do, we're just sort of touching on a few examples here, but thinking about how you can start to combine data sets to help with the distribution in your channels. So in terms of email, how can some of the search data and some of the clickstream data from Hitwise show you different things which are going to be able to make your email more effective? In this case, we're able to show you how to perhaps how to optimize your subject lines in order to populate those with the most popular destinations that are currently being searched for. We can tell you what's the best day and the best time of day to start sending your travel emails. We can help you to identify who are good partners to be working with that are going to be relevant to the customers which you're currently attracting. And we can also show you how to create special offers. So in particular, if there is a fast-moving destination which is seeing a rapid increase in user intent to buy, that's often a good time to start putting in some special offers just to push people over the line and to encourage them to buy that particular flight or that particular holiday. And this is a slightly different look, going sort of back out again, not so deep dive, but looking at a more sort of seasonal across the year. This is quite a complicated chart, so it requires a little bit of explanation. But in essence, what we've got is there are three rings: the inside ring, the middle ring, and the outer ring. And then these are all subdivided by the month. So you can see the inner ring represents unique email open rates. The middle ring represents transaction rates, and the outer ring represents the average order value of people purchasing from travel emails. Now, the colors is a very simple traffic light system, and in essence, what that shows you is when people are more or less likely to do that particular type of thing. What this allows you to do, although it does take a bit of explanation, it does enable you to see quite quickly when people are more likely to be opening their emails, transacting and buying. So you can see that May, for example, is a key month across all of the industries when people are more likely than the average to open their emails. They have an average level of transactions, but when they do open and when they do transact, they actually spend more on average than the normal person coming through to buy. So May is a really good month. June similarly is good. September, on the other hand, a poor month where you only have average open rates, but people are actually less likely to transact and less likely to spend than in another month. And so this gives you quite a nice sort of snapshot of what good months to send emails and in particular sort of push your key offers. You're also worth thinking about the type of email and the content which you're going to be sending. Informative emails we found, and what we mean by informative emails, that these are not just your standard emails or you're sending just email confirmations of a booking or an offer, but things like newsletters. A really good way to grab customer attention, but also have much higher open rates than your average emails. People who open these informative emails, like newsletters, also are twice as likely than a normal email to transact, although they will spend slightly less than your average email campaign. But this is a great way to upsell potential products through a different way of talking and responding to your customers. Clearly, we've been hearing a lot for many, many years about the growth of mobile, and it's almost inevitable that every year we go on and we hear something about this being the year of mobile. 2013, I think, is very much a time when you can't ignore the power of mobile, and in particular how much people are spending in terms of their time opening their emails on their smartphones and tablets. By the time we get to the end of this year, almost 60% of all emails are going to be opened on a mobile device. And if your emails are not able to come through and render properly on mobile devices, then you're missing a huge trick, because that's a massive turn off for your customers. And it's not going to be very productive in terms of your sales. Using things like responsive design, we can actually help you to make sure that the right content comes up and the email renders properly, regardless of the device that's being used. So whether that's on a laptop, on a desktop, tablet, or a small mobile screen, responsive design means that you'll get the right thing appearing and that it all renders nicely. And what we've seen through some of our client examples is that can actually lead to a 9% increase in conversions. So that's not increase in opens, that's actual conversion rates of people buying. And so if you needed any more sort of push to make sure that your mobile optimization is really working for you, I think that's the crystal clear example there. Slightly different example, but another sort of case study that we did with P&O Cruises. One of the things that we saw here was by using rich media and using video content in particular, had huge impact on the amount of revenue that they were taking. So in particular, P&O Cruises were before just sending out quite basic emails, but by sending out an email which had some video content which rendered nicely, which was easy and intuitive for clients to watch, they saw a 679% increase in revenues after embedding this video into their email. And finally, one of the things that we're showing here is sort of getting to the end of the tactical bits is by understanding the seasonality of search, you can start to understand good opportunities for cross-selling. So what we've got here is how people are searching for, the green line is travel, so overall, so people searching for flights and holidays. And the blue line here is people searching for travel insurance. Now you can see there's a key week in February when people are less likely to be searching for travel, so their flights and holidays. You can see the green line is on the decline, but that's also, there's an intersect when people are more likely to be searching for travel insurance. So this is a great time for you to start cross-selling in your travel emails, an opportunity to start selling travel insurance rather than pushing offers for particular flights or other destinations. And in particular, because we saw from one of the previous slides, as we know that travel emails in February are more likely to be opened and have a higher transaction rate, this means that you can be quite confident that these are going to be successful emails that you send. One of the, as we start to move away from tactical and into strategic, one of the ways that we can help to improve your understanding of customers is through our segmentation database, which we call Mosaic. For those of you who are not familiar with Mosaic, it's Experian's in-house segmentation tool. And what it does is group together lots and lots of disparate data services and then breaks the UK into 15 core groups, which are highlighted here. And then underneath that sit a number of subgroups. Now, what we can do with that data, everyone in the country fits into one of these groups, and then we have a huge amalgamation of data which sits behind that, which allows us to tell you a lot of information about who these people are. And one of the things that we're doing and that is emerging through this is we're starting to combine offline data sets and segmentation things like Mosaic, and then some of the other sort of core demographic data, so things like where people live in the country, their age or their sex. And we're starting to bring that together with online behavioral data. So things like where particular visits that people make to various travel websites, or what social media sites they're interested in, whether they search for a particular product or a particular destination, whether they have a like on Facebook. We can start to combine these data sets and start to create for you bespoke panels which allow you to really get underneath the skin of what these people are most interested in, and following these people around on the internet, showing you all of the different things which they're visiting, what they're searching for, defined by either those demographic characteristics or by their behavioral characteristics. So to give you an idea of what that might look like, what we've done is we've shown you Sorry, we might have a slight technical error there. So what we've done is put together some example audiences of what might be possible if you wanted to understand a greater look at what these people look like. So people wanting to travel to New York, for example, or new retirees looking for cruises. We can isolate based on the demographics and by the online behavioral attitudes. We can isolate those audiences and then tell you all of the things about those people that you want to know. And so to give you an example of what that looks like, what we've done is taken two quite different segments, which hopefully are quite intuitive, and then shown you a lot of information about what those segments look like. So on the one hand, we've got family travelers, and we've defined this segment by the behaviors observed by anyone who's searched for either a particular family holiday, or they've made a visit to a website which is primarily for family holidays. So things like Butlins, Disneyland, Tots 2, specific family traveling websites. On the other hand, we've got luxury travelers, and these are defined in a very similar way, but people who have specifically searched in a time period for luxury holidays or luxury travel, or they've made a visit to a website which is specifically designed to offer that kind of experience. So Hayes and Jarvis, for example. Now, by isolating those audiences, we're able to give you quite a lot of information about what they are most interested in. So luxury travelers, for example, we can start to show you what they're searching for when they're looking for flights. And perhaps unsurprisingly, they're less likely to use the word cheap in their search terms. And that's perhaps because they're less interested in the price and more interested in the destination. But they're much more likely to search for destinations including Rome, Faro, and Dubai, particularly for those weekend breaks away. Places like Barcelona come up very, very highly for this audience. Family travelers, on the other hand, much more interested in sort of good, normal family holiday resorts in Spain, so the likes of Malaga, Tenerife, but also the sort of the lure of Mickey Mouse and Disneyland means that Florida is one of the big places that people are searching for if they're a family traveler. Now, whilst this might not be perhaps groundbreaking or particularly a new revelation for you, I think that the sort of the key thing here to take into account is that these are just a few of the top search terms that we can show, but the key thing is that we can go down to thousands of different search terms specifically searched for just by this audience, who are and how are they searching for these key destinations. The next thing is that we can show you is where are these people in the country, and I think there's a nice, sort of quite an interesting split between family travellers and luxury travellers. Here, what we're showing, the size of the bubble here represents how many of that audience there are, whereas whether the bubble is red or green shows whether they're more or less likely to be in that particular area. So, of course, if we look at the family travellers on the left-hand side for a start, you can see that there is quite a large number of bubbles around London. Of course, there are family travellers in London, but you can see that most of those bubbles are red because they are less likely to be in London than we would expect given the size of the population. Family travellers are actually much more likely to be situated in the Midlands and in the Northwest. Whereas if we look at the luxury travellers, very high, dense concentration in South East London and then the sort of the Southwest as well. And when we sort of zoom in, you can see that to a much greater degree. Clearly, there are sort of family travellers in London, as we said, but in particular, sort of Chelsea and Kensington, a very high concentration of luxury travellers in this area. And just going back to channels, we can be quite clever about the way that we approach targeting these two different segments by looking at what channels they're most interested in. So for luxury travelers, for example, they're much more likely than family travelers to respond to email. So using this as a channel would be a really good way to get those people involved. Family travelers, on the other hand, much more likely to be engaged on social media, and so this might be a good time to start investing in Facebook advertising. And one of the great things about Facebook, of course, is that you can target people not just on their demographics, but also on their likes. And so by understanding, this is a slightly different way of looking at the data. If we take family travelers, what kind of TV shows are they interested in? We can see that from what they're watching on things like BBC iPlayer and what other shows they're searching for. Once you're armed with that knowledge, you can start to target those people specifically on Facebook by what they like. So, for example, if you knew that by using this data that family travelers were particular sort of fans of Emmerdale, but you also, by combining some of the other demographic data, that they're more likely to be 35 to 45-year-old males living in the northwest of England, you can start to specifically target people within those parameters on Facebook. So people who are of that age, live in that area, and also who like Emmerdale. This means that you're much more likely to resonate with those people when you put a bit of banner advertising, and they're much more likely to click through. Now, we mentioned that Mosaic is a great way to understand who your customers are, and there's an extraordinary amount of data which sits behind the demographic data that is in there. What we're showing here is basically just how the demographics are quite different. The spread of people who fit into these groups is quite different between the luxury and family travelers. And in particular, one group I want to focus on is the mid-career climbers, which is a specific group within the luxury traveler set, which these people are much more likely to be this kind of group. So what we can do is then show you all of the things, those sort of 500 things that we mentioned at the top of the presentation. What do those people actually look like? So we can show you, for mid-career climbers, for example, whereabouts in the country they live. What are the typical cars that they drive? What do their houses look like? How much they earn? What do they have kids in the family? All of these sort of things, we can start to build up a really sort of comprehensive picture of who these people are and how we can best attract them. And so one of the things which comes out of this, which is quite interesting, is that if you wanted to target them through particular media, we can show you the various newspapers they're most interested in and the type of brands which they like. But one of the things which really struck me when we were having a look at this analysis was that the mid-career climbers groups is also one of the biggest users represented using Groupon. Now, that might strike you as being slightly odd because we know that these are people who are quite affluent, have a very high household income. So why would they be looking for daily deals? And I think one of the things to sort of take away from this is that, of course, people are, people who have a lot of money, they're not afraid to sort of splash out on things if they believe it's important. But that doesn't mean that they're not cost conscious. And actually, these are people who are quite careful buyers who are going to do quite a lot of research. And so actually, by perhaps making an offer on Groupon and by offering them a discount, which is nevertheless still going to bring you in quite a lot of revenue, but it might be just a tipping point for this particular group to have an interest in buying from you over one of your competitors. And I sort of wanted to just bring it back to seasonality because one of the things that we can do is then show you, okay, well, how do mid-career climbers in particular, when are they most active in the travel industry? When are they most likely to be searching for holidays? And so here I've got the red line shows you when people are going to travel in general, and then the blue line shows you when this specific group of individuals are most active on travel sites. So you can see, firstly, in the sort of February time, late January, early February, whilst travel overall is sort of declining, we've had that initial January peak. This is actually when mid-career climbers are almost at their most active. So this is them booking the sort of the winter holidays. There's also, you can see as we go through to the summer, as travel starts to pick up, the mid-career climbers are actually much more active earlier on in the season. So these are people who are well organized, planning ahead, looking to grab good bargains, and as we said, cost conscious. So they are going to be people who are worth targeting earlier when they're more interested in booking their travel and getting it nailed down, so that they can be sort of sure that they've got their holiday all organized. By understanding when these specific groups are most active, you can start to target these people based on their individual preferences much, much smarter. The final bit which I want to talk to you about today sort of comes back to what we were saying earlier about customers expect this seamless approach to your advertising, but it's no longer enough to just blast out messages to everybody. You have to be able to personalize what you're saying and to be able to send out relevant messages to the right people at the right time. And we say, this is one of our sort of new phrases, is that it's not about the channel. For us, life is the channel, and people are not always thinking about when they want to go on holiday, what they're going to book for their things. They've got lots of things on their mind and on the agenda, whether to take the dog for a walk, or do they need to look after the baby, do they need to get the shopping, have we got enough washing up liquid. There's lots of things which are going on all the time, and so you need to be smarter about getting inside the sort of the mindset of who your consumers are, understanding all of those different things which go behind that, and then how can you be able to resonate with them when they're most likely to be engaged. And so one of the things that we're doing, and this is a new ability for us, is to be able to take all of the different data sets that we have, and also data, third-party data from our clients, and so you can start to bring all of these things together to be much, much more intelligent about the way that you go about messaging your clients. So what we have the ability to do now is to put all of that data into one system and create a whole bunch of rules which will say, if this person sits into a particular demographic or a particular segment, only send them an email if this criteria has been fulfilled. If you send them an email and 3 days later they still haven't responded, that will automatically trigger perhaps an SMS message, which might be better for that particular client at that time. This brings us into a new age of technology where we're able to intelligently and in real time alter the way that we message people and bring it to something which is much, much more responsive to the needs of the client. So some of the key sort of takeaways of things that we've been talking about today: travel is highly seasonal, which has regular patterns. The good news is that with those regular patterns, you can start to predict what's going to happen online, and you can capitalize on that. If you know what to expect, so you can start to jump on the trends at the right time. We saw that with things like the snow example. We're all becoming much more data savvy, and I think the one of the key things which is happening is that we're having to justify everything much more than we have previously, and what that means is that we're having to become more reliant on data. But data actually is our friend, and it's something that can help us to know, get, and keep our customers in the long term. Now, there are lots of really good tactical ways which you can combine different data sets in order to get a much more granular insight into who your customers are and what their behaviors are. And that can allow you to target people and alter your marketing strategy according to when's the best time. And we saw that a lot with how we can understand what people are searching for and use that in our email campaigns, for example. And the final thing, Experian is a big data company. Using big data is all about understanding the customer. And when you're armed with this knowledge, when you truly understand your customer, understand all of the ins and outs, and understand all of the things which they're interested in above and beyond what you're trying to sell them, you can start to be a lot smarter about the way that you go about targeting and interacting with them. All of the things that we talked about today and a lot of the additional detail is covered in our white paper, which is available on the Experian Marketing Services website. If you want to find out more about some of the things that we do, you can go to the website. There's lots of good content there. I'd also encourage you to watch our Lucy video, which is the URL is just there, which can show you how we can start to join together all of these things to make a better experience for your customers. That's it from us. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any sort of follow-up questions or you want to find out more, please do visit the website, or you can email us directly at digital.marketing@experian.com. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Experian Marketing or at hitwise_UK. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.